There's something happening in Puerto Rico right now that's about to change the dynamic for them forever. What does that mean? It means a mass exodus of a lot of wealth from Puerto Rico, and they're going to go to a few other different places. Today, I'm going to share with you 5 countries that people are living in Puerto Rico right now would likely move to if this happens, or maybe better said, when this happens. And I'm going to explain to you why the Dominican Republic will be the #1 country to benefit once everybody exits Puerto Rico, looking for a better place to be. Years back, Puerto Rico signed into law Act 20 and Act 22. Act 20 gives corporations the ability to move their business to Puerto Rico, and in exchange, they only pay like 4% tax. Act 22, however, targets individuals who move to Puerto Rico, where they can avoid paying tax on income, property, and capital gains for the time after they move there. So imagine you move to Puerto Rico, you buy something, it increases by $1 million, you pay 0 in capital gains at that point. Now, this has created a lot of influx of wealthy individuals moving out of the continental United States and down to Puerto Rico for many, many reasons. 1, incredible tax incentives, as I just laid out. 2, you don't need a passport. It's a U.S. territory, so you're staying within your country, within your own citizenship. And 3, of course, the weather. It's tropical, it's Caribbean, it's beautiful. But what's actually happened in Puerto Rico is a lot of wealth has moved there and have popped up expat communities and has segregated themselves from the general society. And really the wealthy are benefiting while the locals are just seeing increased prices, difficult time finding and buying real estate, and so on. So arguably, it's not a great move for Puerto Rico right now, or at least they're not seeing the benefits they thought they might. On the flip side of it, this is a really great tax structure for anybody with money. So who do you think wants to come after that? It's 3 little letters you may have heard of. It's called the IRS. Where they can get their tax money, they're going to get their tax money. And Act 22 is a loophole that just isn't attractive if collecting taxes is your business. Add to that a lot of societal pressure around taxing the wealthy and so on and so forth. It's just not a good look for the U.S. to have an area where wealthy people can move and pay almost no taxes. So here's what's going to happen. Act 22, the one where individuals can move and pay no income tax, no property tax, and no capital gains tax, that's going to go away soon. I'm calling it right here on this channel. And here's my reason why. There's 3 things that have happened recently. Number 1, as I mentioned, the IRS is clamping down on Act 22 in Puerto Rico. They're looking for every way to make sure that if it's not followed to the T, those that made the move will pay their taxes, or at least what the IRS deems to be their taxes. And when you've got the IRS clamping down on wanting to collect more tax income, it makes Act 22 less attractive for wealthy people moving there. Second is Congress recently put up a bill trying to ban or abolish Act 22. It was a mostly Democratic-led bill, and it got shot down in the House. However, there's momentum there. There's thoughts there. But the third one is probably the biggest reason why I believe Act 22 is not long for this world. And that was the recent gubernatorial election in Puerto Rico. There are 2 ruling parties in Puerto Rico, traditionally, like Republicans and Democrats. But this other candidate named Juan Dalmau, who was a third-party candidate and started out with almost no chance of winning this election, he came out and he said,
"My #1 priority, get rid of Act 22.
And you know what happened? He came this close to winning. By only a few percentage points, he lost to one of the major party candidates. But boy, oh boy, talk about a government getting a clear sign like,
hey, we don't like this Act 22 very much.
And I just think that momentum is building toward Act 22 being modified or completely abolished. Now, given Puerto Rico's other issues, terrible infrastructure, first in line in the eye of the storm anytime a hurricane comes through, higher crime, and honestly, not the greatest beaches in all of the Caribbean, or the world for that matter. Lack of incentives will reduce the demand to go there for continental Americans, but it doesn't mean that rich Americans aren't going to look for other places to invest and set down roots. I know what you might be saying,
Jamie, oh my God, but if they move to a place like the Dominican Republic, it's just going to become another Puerto Rico.
And I say nay, that's not true, and I'll prove it to you here. But before I do that, do me a favor. If you're enjoying my channel, hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 25,000 subs by the end of the year. And about 70% of you watching aren't subscribed. So if you don't mind hitting the button wherever it might be, truly appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, my name's Jamie Gruber. I left a high-paying job back in 2022 and moved with my family to Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, where we've been for the last 2.5 years. And I share lots of information on this channel, particularly around moving abroad and a lot of the things happening here in the Dominican Republic. Okay, so here are 5 places. I've already revealed one of them, and I'll talk about that at the end. So here are 4 other places that Americans may move if they're looking to shelter their money from taxes and improve their lifestyle. I'll give you the reasons why, but also some of the reasons why maybe not. And the first one on the list is Monaco. So Monaco imposes no taxes on income or wealth for residents. So there's a lot of high net worth individuals that go there for that reason. In addition, while it's not part of the EU, it does have Schengen passport access, meaning it can move through the European Union passport holders of Monaco without any issue. They don't even need their passports. It's also highly stable politically. It has great living standards and it's a very developed part of the world. The second place, also in Europe, is Portugal. Portugal also does not have wealth taxes, making it a very attractive place, again, for high net worth individuals. Getting bit by a mosquito. But it also has the non-habitual residency program, NHR, which offers a 10-year tax break on foreign income, dividends, pensions, those sorts of things. And the same thing, the golden visa program, so you can get around the EU, no problem. Now, the third one is the UAE. Everyone knows about Dubai. Lots of money has moved to Dubai. The UAE has no income tax. It has free trade zones for businesses, and it offers a luxury lifestyle. Now, the problem with these three, right off the jump, if you're an American, is moving to the other side of the world. Not that it doesn't happen, but boy, if you could stay at least within your hemisphere, within your time zone, it's a way more attractive option. Hence, Puerto Rico, with the tax benefits, getting a ton of influx of Americans. And the challenge with the UAE in particular is the cost of living there has gone up so much that it's almost as if like the tax reduction that you see or the tax savings that you see is offset by the cost of living. But again, all viable options when people start leaving Puerto Rico after Act 22 is abolished, which again, I'm calling it. Gotta trust El Gringo. All right, so the fourth place is actually in this hemisphere, and it is the country of Panama. Panama is a territorial tax system, meaning only income earned there is taxed, so foreign income is not. It has low tax rates, and you get an easy path to residency and citizenship there through investment. So it is a reasonable option for folks. But the last one, as I've said, is where I live right now, and that's here in the Dominican Republic. And there's a lot of obvious here. Puerto Rico is like a 30-minute flight away. It's very close, very similar climate, beautiful beaches, much nicer than Puerto Rico, with reduced corruption, improved political stability, and an economy that's growing at a rate of 4, 5, 6% per year GDP growth. In addition, Dominican Republic offers Confotor, which is when you buy a property that's in the right circumstance and is approved, then you pay 0 property tax for 15 years and you pay no transfer tax at the time of purchase. In addition, DR is a territorial tax system again and has a no double taxation policy with the United States. So if you pay money here in tax, then you don't pay money there in tax. There's a lot more to it than what I just said. I'm gonna gloss over it a bit. I have other videos that get into things like the FEIE and the FTP, these different programs that allow you to reduce or eliminate your US tax by living in another country, like the Dominican Republic. But the point is, for somebody who's high net worth, who's saying,
wow, I want to be in my time zone. I want that Puerto Rican level of weather and culture.
You can get a very similar feel with more political stability. Yes, more, we'll talk about that, with better upside and better infrastructure, just an island over in the Dominican Republic. So now what does that do to the Dominican Republic if and when Act 22 is abolished and there's an influx into the Dominican Republic? First and foremost, it will increase real estate prices in the area. So if you own assets here now, you will see an increase in that asset value, which does of course threaten to make it more expensive for locals. It already has. When people move out of the United States into a country like this, it will increase the cost of living. It just won't do it to the level that happened in Puerto Rico. Let me explain that. First off, Americans don't like to leave America. When you think about the United States climate-wise, you can be in any climate in any part of the country. You've got 2 coastlines, you've got the mountains, you've got the desert, you've got the beaches in Florida. If you want the weather, you get the weather. So I always tell people this that think that there's a bunch of me running around down here in the Dominican Republic. The answer is no. Not unless I come as an accessory to a Dominican, like I did with my wife being Dominican. In fact, there are more white Canadians here, and here's why. Culturally in the United States, you don't need to leave to find the climate that you want. But in Canada, you do. There's nothing tropical about Canada. Sorry, Canada.
Are you serious?
So you got to go to Florida or the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico or Jamaica if you want to be in a warm climate. You're going to have to leave the country. Similarly, South Americans, there are many of them here, but they cross country lines because there's many countries jammed into one continent. Same with Europe. There's more Europeans here because Europeans are used to crossing countries and crossing cultures. Americans just aren't. So there's very few just white Americans or black Americans that pick up and move to the Dominican Republic unless they have Dominican roots or Dominican connections. There are some, but not many. In fact, I believe there's 300,000 US citizens living in the Dominican Republic, and the vast majority of them are Dominican American. I say all of that to say this. The difference between Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic is this ain't the United States. And the big point I'm making with that is that in Puerto Rico, it is the last thought federally. It is not a priority for the US federal government, which has this huge country to run, and then Puerto Rico is just a little territory off the coast that they use for whatever they need to. The Dominican Republic is its own sovereign government, meaning the government here is fully focused on the Dominican Republic. They are part of the United Nations. They are part of the world community. Puerto Rico is as well, but it's subservient, if you will. It has a second constitution of the United States that needs to abide by. So the United States can have its thumb on Puerto Rico. It has influence in places like the Dominican Republic, but nowhere near the ability to make the Dominican Republic into what has happened in Puerto Rico. And this is not just me saying it. If you look at any country where US expats have moved to, none of them have become Puerto Rico. The only places people cite are Puerto Rico and Hawaii. And what's unique about those two places, a state and a territory? They're both the United States. They're owned, if you will, by the United States. Portugal, Panama, Mexico, they're not. They're influenced by, but not owned by. So the impact of US expats moving into another country is way less than if they're moving into a territory within the United States that isn't prioritized by the federal government. I hope that makes sense. And again, you don't have to believe me. Tell me a country that has had the same impact as Puerto Rico or a state like Hawaii. That is not the United States. There's an impact, but not to that level. So the core point here is Dominican Republic is already growing. Already a lot of people are attracted to coming here and are buying here. You can see it. The W Hotel is coming here. The St. Regis, the Four Seasons, massive projects all around the country that many people think like, oh, it's oversaturated. But look, companies of that size and scale don't just willy-nilly invest in other countries because, oh, it's probably going to be all right. They put time, money, and energy in. They dedicate a lot of smart people and resources to determine, like, yeah, we see a future here. Doesn't mean there won't be rockiness and turbulence, but long term, they see the future, the investable future in a place like the Dominican Republic, as do I. Now, I'll admit, I do see the Dominican Republic still as a speculative investment, meaning I'm not going to take all of my investable money and put it in DR, but I'm going to take a chunk and invest it here because it's like Bitcoin 10 years ago. Like, man, I see this doing something. I got to get some exposure to it. Same thing here. Don't take your last and only 50 grand and invest in DR. But if you're worth $1 million, 1.5, and you got $50 to $100,000, that represents, 5-10% of your net worth. Absolutely, I think you should get exposure to a place like the Dominican Republic. Now, here's to me what's very different about the time that we're in, 2024, going into 2025, and even over the last couple of years. And I might have a bit of a unique insight because I built a brand around being somebody that lives in the Dominican Republic, and it's garnered attention from some very interesting people. Not going to name names or anything like that, but the point I'm going to make here is there's a lot of people that are prominent, that have large followings, that have major influence, that are looking at, considering, and even buying and moving to the Dominican Republic. You know some of the names. These aren't the ones that follow me per se, but you know the Vin Diesels and the Mark Anthonys and the Jennifer Lopez's. You know about them. But they have just sort of, wow, it's so beautiful, and they bought something. Vin Diesel is building an entire studio on the North Shore, so he's a bit of a unique one. But as he's gone from movie star to more social media influencer, and people follow his journey and they see him getting more exposure in the Dominican Republic, that means something. And the people that are messaging me that have really big followings, that are not somebody that they're associated with the Dominican Republic, are about to start advertising the fact that they're coming here or they're buying here. And the social media age is only getting started. In fact, Goldman Sachs recently released an article that said in the next 2 to 3 years, the influencer economy, what I do essentially with this, is likely to triple to $500 billion a year. So while many of you are going to say, oh, there's always been people that are paying attention to DR, yes, but there hasn't been the same amount of influence that's readily available sharing this as there is now, and there will be in the next 2 to 3 years for DR. Prime example is DJ Khaled. He just was down here. Another one. I had to. And he shared a ton of stuff while here, and he made this big, beautiful proclamation at the end, like, I'll be back, and yada, yada, yada. That guy is a big, big name that's all of a sudden now saying, hey, check this place out. So when you go with what I'm seeing externally that you all see, and then what I'm getting from people internally that I get to see, combined with the likelihood of Act 22 going away, combined with the stability that this place, the Dominican Republic, has shown over the last few years, and combined with the amount of investment of major brands coming in, watch out, Puerto Rico. I see this place continuing to expand and grow. Again, always with corrections and bounces along the way. Nothing is ever smooth and up and to the right. But boy, we'll see what happens. So now the big question is, how do you invest here without getting taken for a ride? And I did a video here that you could watch that'll tell you all about it. Check it out and make sure to come back to this channel. Please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.